When my dad pushed his way into the dimly lit hospital room, he was ready to yell. He had his speech prepared, how ungrateful I was, how I'd ruined my sister's big night, and how leaving me on the roadside in the freezing rain was just tough love. But the moment his eyes landed on the figure sitting calmly in the armchair beside my bed, the anger vanished from his face, replaced by total terror. The color drained from his cheeks. His hands began to shake so violently he had to grab the doorframe to keep from collapsing. "You," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You died 13 years ago." The woman standing up to face him wasn't a ghost. She was the one person my dad had spent his entire life running from, and she held every single key to his past. "My name is Olivia Sterling, and today I'm 28 years old. But to understand how my life truly began, I have to take you back to the night I was 15, the night my family decided I was completely disposable. Growing up, my younger sister, Chloe, was the undisputed golden child. In my parents' eyes, Chloe was an angel who could do no wrong, while I was the quiet, invisible daughter meant to take the blame whenever things fell apart. It was a freezing November night, and a brutal storm was raging outside. Chloe had been playing around in Dad's home office and accidentally knocked over a vintage, irreplaceable ceramic clock, a prized family heirloom. Panicking over what she'd done, Chloe sprinted into the living room crying, pointing her finger directly at me. She swore to our parents that I had thrown a fit and smashed it on purpose. I tried to defend myself. I begged them to look at me and hear the truth, but Dad didn't care. His face turned deep red with blind fury. He grabbed me by my arm, marched me straight to the front door, and shoved me out into the pouring rain. He screamed that he didn't raise a liar, threw my thin sneakers onto the wet porch, and slammed the door shut, locking it. He told me through the door not to bother coming back until I learned some respect. The icy rain pelted my face like needles as I stumbled down the dark, winding country road. I didn't even have a coat on, just a thin sweater that quickly soaked through, clinging cold against my skin. The wind whipped through the bare trees, howling so loud it drowned out the sound of my own frantic crying. I was shivering violently, my hands completely numb, and my chest felt so tight I could barely draw a breath. With no cell phone, no shoes, and miles of empty fields surrounding me, sheer terror began to set in. My parents had actually left me out here to freeze. Every time headlights flickered in the distance, my heart leaped, hoping Dad had realized his mistake and come back for me. But car after car splashed past, spraying freezing water over my legs without slowing down. After nearly an hour of walking, my body finally gave out. The hypothermia took over, making my limbs feel heavy as lead. My knees buckled on the slick asphalt, and I collapsed near the gravel edge of a dark driveway. My vision blurred into total darkness as my head hit the wet ground. Through the haze of slipping unconsciousness, I faintly saw a set of bright LED headlights pull to a sudden stop. A pair of luxury car doors slammed shut, and through the roaring storm, I heard an elegant, authoritative woman's voice shout, "Oh my God, there's a child out here. Call an ambulance right now." When I finally opened my eyes, the howling wind was gone. Instead, I was met with the soft, steady beep of a heart monitor and the sterile scent of rubbing alcohol. I was lying in a warm hospital bed, a thick blanket pulled up to my chin, and an IV drip hooked into my arm. My fingers were still stiff and tingling, but the unbearable, bone-chilling cold had finally faded. Sitting in a leather armchair right beside my bed was the woman who had pulled me out of the storm. She was impeccably dressed, her posture poised and commanding, yet her eyes held a warmth and deep concern I had never once seen in my own mother's face. Her name was Evelyn Vance. Seeing me awake, she offered a gentle, reassuring smile and poured me a warm cup of water, telling me I was completely safe now. It turned out the doctors had treated me for severe hypothermia, and because I was an abandoned minor, the hospital had immediately contacted the police. As the officers finished taking my statement, they called my parents, ordering them to report to the hospital right away. Evelyn could have easily left after saving me, but she refused to budge. She crossed her arms, sat back in her chair, and firmly told the nurse that she was staying right by my side until my parents arrived to answer for what they'd done. The heavy door to my hospital room slammed open, and my dad stormed in, his eyes wide with anger. He didn't look relieved to see me alive. Instead, he marched toward my bed with his chest puffed out, ready to launch into a furious tirade about how ungrateful I was, how I had humiliated the family by calling the police, and how leaving me out in the storm was just a lesson in discipline. "Do you have any idea what you've done, Olivia?" he spat, his voice booming through the quiet room. "You make a scene, you waste police resources, all because you threw a tantrum over a clock." He was so consumed by his own rage that he hadn't even noticed the woman sitting quietly in the armchair next to me. Evelyn waited until he finished his initial outburst, then slowly stood up, smoothing down her coat with unhurried precision. "That's enough," Evelyn said, her voice dropping like an anvil in the silent room. My dad spun around, ready to snap at whoever dared to interrupt him, but the moment his eyes landed on her face, the words died in his throat. The arrogance drained from his expression in a fraction of a second, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. The color drained from his face until he looked like a ghost himself. His knees visibly buckled, and his hands began to shake so violently he had to reach out and grab the corner of a nearby rolling table just to keep himself upright. "You," he stammered, his voice cracking into a whisper. You died 13 years ago. You can't be here." Evelyn offered him a cold, sharp smile that made the air in the room freeze all over again. "I'm very much alive, Richard," she said softly. "And it looks like you haven't changed one bit." Evelyn took a slow step toward my dad, her presence completely dominating the small room. She revealed that 13 years ago, before my sister and I were born, my dad had been her trusted junior partner in a lucrative real estate venture. But driven by greed, he had stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars from their firm, falsified legal documents, and fled town, leaving behind a trail of ruined lives. He had assumed she went bankrupt and died years ago after the scandal destroyed her reputation. "I didn't die, Richard," Evelyn said, her voice dripping with ice. "I rebuilt my empire. And for 13 years, I've kept detailed records of every illegal dollar you stole from me, records I was waiting for the right moment to hand over to federal prosecutors." While my dad stood frozen, paralyzed by the sudden resurrection of his past, the hospital door opened again. A police officer stepped inside with a tablet in hand. Security footage from a local shop near our house had just been reviewed. The video clearly showed my sister, Chloe, accidentally dropping the heirloom clock on her way out of the store, proving my complete innocence in front of everyone present. Seeing her husband completely broken and the truth laid bare, my mother began to weep nervously, trying to plead for forgiveness. But Evelyn cut her off without hesitation. "You have two choices tonight, Richard," Evelyn declared, pulling a set of legal papers from her briefcase. "You sign over full legal guardianship of Olivia to me tonight and walk away, or I hand these financial fraud documents directly to the officers standing right behind you. You abandoned your daughter in a storm. Now decide your own fate." With his hands still trembling uncontrollably and the threat of immediate arrest hanging over his head, my dad grabbed the pen. Without looking me in the eye once, he signed the legal papers, officially surrendering full legal guardianship of me to Evelyn. My mother stood beside him in stunned, tearful silence, too terrified to speak a word of protest. That night, I walked out of that hospital room beside Evelyn and never looked back. I left behind the house where I had been treated like a second-class citizen, leaving my biological family to crumble under the weight of their own choices. Evelyn officially took me into her home, becoming the mentor and guardian I had always needed. For the first time in my life, I felt safe. She gave me a quiet bedroom, bought me proper clothes, and made sure I received the best education possible. More than that, she taught me how to believe in myself, instilling in me the confidence and business acumen she had spent a lifetime building. Under her guidance, I flourished, graduating at the top of my class and earning a degree in business administration. Meanwhile, karma caught up with my biological family. Without Evelyn's stolen foundation to lean on, and with news of Dad's past misdeeds leaking out, his business gradually collapsed over the next few years. They lost their big house and their wealth. Chloe, who had been raised to believe she never had to face consequences, flunked out of college and struggled to hold down a job, spoiled and unprepared for the real world. While they sank deeper into financial ruin, I was building a life rooted in stability, integrity, and love, all thanks to the woman who pulled me out of the freezing rain. Today, at 28 years old, I serve as the Chief Executive Officer of Evelyn's Global Philanthropic Foundation, managing millions of dollars dedicated to supporting vulnerable youth and victims of family neglect. I built a life I am truly proud of, surrounded by people who value me for who I am. A few months ago, while attending a charity event in my hometown, I spotted an older, stooped man working as a low-wage janitor outside the venue. He was wearing a faded, oversized jacket, his hair thin and gray. It was my father. His eyes locked onto mine, filled with a sudden surge of desperate hope, and his lips parted as if he were about to speak, perhaps to offer a long-overdue apology or beg for help. I paused for just a second, looking at the man who had once thrown me into a freezing storm without a second thought. But I didn't feel anger, nor did I feel revenge. I felt nothing at all. I simply gave him a polite, distant nod, turned on my heel, and walked away into the warmth of the building, leaving him behind in the cold where he belonged. My journey taught me that blood does not make a family. True family is defined by loyalty, respect, and the people who step up to shield you when the storms of life hit hardest. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have forgiven him? Or walked away like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.